Hello and welcome back to the Crownening.
The
We're
Crownening.
we are covering season 1, episode 7 of our rewatch of The Crown, Scientia, Potentia Est.
Oh yeah, Scientia is probably right, not Scientia. I knew it sounded weird when I said it.
Scientia.
Scientia Potentia-ish.
You say it like like Winston. That probably is how he would say it, but
Thank you.
so we over the last few episodes, we've had the crowning of crownings. We had the gel ignite thing that was going on.
The big one.
Yeah. We had that weather thing. So now we're going to get into this episode really does focus on ignorance and the knowledge of ignorance.
Well, I already got rid of the description. That's on me. But basically, they're talking about the testing of the H-bomb, which, if I'm correct, is a predecessor. No, they already dropped the A-bomb. What's the difference between the A-bomb and the H-bomb?
Hydrogen bomb?
Yeah. But I wonder, I guess we'll find out, won't we?
It's the Cold War. It was a thermonuclear fusion weapon.
That's right.
And it has never been used in battle by any country.
Thank God. All right. Well, are you ready to get started?
Oh, I'm ready.
We're ready. We're ready. We're ready. All right. Da-dun. All of my notes, the first thing says da-dun. All right. So we are opening. Planes are flying overhead above Windsor Castle, and it tells us it is 1940. So that's letting us know it's a little bit of a flashback, and we're taking a look at when Lizzie was a little girl during the Second World War. Little kids are like super stoked that they're seeing the planes flying over. They're like, partying in the park, celebrating. Yeah. And then we zone in on Buckingham Palace. We see Lizzie looking out the window, and she doesn't look like those happy kids. She is like sad. And it sounds like she's being called. Oh, go ahead.
I don't think those kids are celebrating. I think that's kind of a scary thing. Those planes were war planes.
True. They do tell the kids it's war, but maybe during this time, all that propaganda.
Maybe it was because they were coming home and they were happy about it.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess I don't know all the minute details of what was going on.
I mean, it's planes flying overhead. We can't infer too terribly much because we never see it again.
Yeah.
So
we don't really see them again.
we see the blimps, we see the planes, and then it moves on.
Yeah. But what we're focusing on is Lizzie, because she is now being called in by her tutor to, girl, come sit down. Yeah. Oh yeah, they are speaking French. A French tutor. So she and Margaret are in class together. And they're just learning French. Margaret's making faces at Lizzie across the table because, sister stuff. And Lizzie's just like, yes, she's not here for the silliness. And so now it looks like somebody has come in. They are saying they need to bring Lizzie to the vice provost. Now, the vice provost is like, I guess, like a top professor at a college nearby. It looks like from Eton. Yep, Eton College. So she's going by herself.
She's going by herself with her little caretaker. I love this moment that we're watching right now. Yes. She's in the courtyard in this little blue coat, and she's being surrounded by all of these boys. Little gentlemen in their they're all in their coats and their top hats, and but it's all boys. Every single one of them. There's no girls. It's just her.
And I love the cinematography in this moment because all these boys are like in the black and the white, and she's in this bright blue. She stands out. And it's just another way of saying, she's very special in this moment. Margaret's not here. She's having to do this by herself. Her parents aren't even here. She must feel so out of place.
Yeah, Margaret got to kind of hang out back at the classroom and just play around.
Yeah, or just, be a regular, quote unquote, regular kid compared to Lizzie. So now we are in the classroom with the provost, a very old man. And he is kind of teaching her about the Constitution, like what her job essentially is. And they're kind of, she's kind of a little distracted, probably because it's very boring. But he asks a question about which side of the government has the divine and which one is the dignified. The dignified and the efficient, excuse me. So the efficient is supposed to be like Parliament, the ones who,
the government.
Yeah, the paper pushers. They're the ones who get the stuff done. And like he says here, they have the power. Exactly. And they have the power to execute and write policy. And so he's kind of telling her the reasoning behind, I guess, how this monarchy, this constitutional monarchy works, is that while the efficient, the people who push the papers, do all the policy, but they answer to the queen or the monarch. Now, the monarch is the dignified, because, they got anointed by God.
And so they're dignified. Answers only to God.
Correct. Exactly.
They're talking about the essential need for cooperation between the two hands of the governing parties. You can't have one without the other, because basically, like a godhead without a god is pointless. So a monarchy without a monarch is pointless. But she's not there to be the brains of the operation. She's there to be the inspiration, the message, the person, the guidance, the divine guidance on earth. And the bureaucracy, the government, are meant to make sure that they're implementing those the best they can, but they have to cooperate in hand with one another. They can't do it without each other.
Which is perfect that you just mentioned that, because where we paused is literally where Liz is being told to underline the word
trust.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's exactly what he's trying to say, is that they have to trust one another. The monarch has to trust that the government being formed in their name is running properly, and vice versa. The parliament, the efficient, need to trust in the dignified, that they can go to her or them and talk and get real guidance or clarity from like an outside, non-political point of view,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And this scene is, she's asking, like, do you teach this to anyone else? And he's like, actually, no, just you. And he starts going, this is what I show the other kids. And he hands her like a bunch of calculus or something, their exam papers.
It's math.
It's math.
Or physics or some shit.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, find the triangle. It's math.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like, she's like, don't I have to know this? He's like, no. That's very undignified.
Which is so sad, because
so sad.
You really should be, as the leader of we've seen this in the US ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Certain leaders. You really should be.
We're really not clean either.
Yeah. You should be able to have kind of a basic understanding of things that you're talking about. But there's also, you can't be expected to know everything, which is why people have cabinet members, they have advisors, they have, secretary of whatever, which
right.
For the monarchy, that is the prime minister and his cabinet are her set of advisors, or at this point, King George's set of advisors. But
yeah, absolutely.
But basically what they're doing is saying, because you're about to have all those people that are going to take care of you and help you make all these decisions, we're not going to make you learn any of this stuff. You're just going to learn the history of monarchy and how to rule, because you don't need to know physics or English or mathematics. Yeah, exactly. Someone else will talk to you about this stuff.
Exactly. No, this is not, all you have to worry about is just being queen and doing your duty, and it's literally just this one little lane that she's being expected and kind of held into. They're almost like stunting her growth. When I first saw this, I was just like, well, if she wants to know these things, why can't she?
Yeah, as a girl who loves to learn, I was definitely feeling that way, like, oh man, I would be
I'm so sorry
piling those books
Here, Lizzie,
on. Yeah,
the geography textbook.
I'll
girl.
teach you,
I'm
Lizzie.
sorry.
I'm sorry, girl.
The world was not kind enough to little girls at this time, and especially royal little girls in this way.
The world has never been kind to little girls.
No, I think we've learned that through our well-behaved podcast.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, so the provost just like totally just goes, no, girl, forget it. Don't. Like, that's not what you need to know. You don't got to solve for X. And so she just kind of looks up and is just she seems a little like perturbed by it. And then we cut to the intro. We see a little demonstration of a giant bomb. Yeah. And it says that it's somebody named Khrushchev, and please forgive me for butchering that, but it's somebody speaking in Russian, talking about this huge bomb. I don't know if it's the atomic, we get the mushroom cloud, the big ring that goes around it. And then we cut straight to Lizzie.
She's reading the newspaper with Cookie's reading the newspaper, and she's saying, "Did you see that Einstein changed his mind about something again?"
Oh my God. Yes. And Lizzie's like, "Oh, yes,
I know who Einstein is."
Yeah. I love Cookie's answer. It's just like, I don't know, but everyone's making a tremendous fuss about it.
Less clear to me. So
yeah, Cookie.
We're talking in the middle of this, but let's pause it.
Yeah, let's pause.
We're talking. The conversation opens up. They're in the tea room. They're having tea. Cookie's like, "Oh, Einstein changed his mind again," and the Queen asks, "Well, what did he change his mind about?" And Cookie kind of pauses. She looks down the paper and she goes, "Well, that's
trying to find the answer.
Less clear to me."
Yeah, it's not exactly clear, but everybody's making a tremendous fuss.
Literally.
And it's just so, it's very Cookie. She's like wanting to comment on it, but she doesn't know anything about it.
Yep.
And she can't even read the paper to find out what it is. It's like she won't even take the time, maybe, but it's just very Cookie. And Liz is just like, oh God. So now she's like, well, remembering her education with the vice provost, and she remembers asking him, shouldn't I learn about other things like literature, philosophy, science? And she says that he thought that, I had enough on my plate being, the heir and learning all about Constitution. But she asks her mom, like, don't you think I still should have learned about it? All right, so Lizzie's feeling a bit inadequate. We kind of know that because she's asking her, like, why don't I know these things? I feel like I should. Doesn't one have a duty to know certain things? That's what she's saying. And she remembers the provost and asking him about trying to like branch out. And she goes, well, why didn't I? Don't I have to know these things? And Cookie just goes, why?
Yeah, literally. She's like, what's the point?
Yeah, she's like, you can't be expected to know all those things. And Lizzie goes, yeah, but I also know almost nothing. And this next line, and would you please read it for me, Lauren? It's right there on the screen.
Me?
My favorite of this entire. Yes.
Do you want me to do my Cookie voice and everything?
I would love your Cookie voice, girl. Mm-hmm.
You know when to keep your mouth shut. That's more important than anything.
That was so good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been practicing.
You've been doing great. Cookie is peak Cookie in this moment, in my opinion.
Literally, when the peak Cookie moment for me was why?
Yeah. It's just like
basically she was flabbergasted that Elizabeth would want to know anything more than what she already knows.
Exactly. This woman, peak privilege personified. That's what I wrote. For sure. She just was like, why would you even want, like, why would you have to know? All you got to know is to keep your fucking mouth shut. That's it. And basically is kind of like, you should never have an opinion on anything. You should, it's never complain, never explain. And she's the one, I think, who really drilled it into Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. And so Lizzie is like, you can really see she's fighting because she knows she has a duty to know more about the world, especially with all the changes going on. And you just saw this in like a previous episode where she's talking about, or not she, but I guess Philip was talking about the world changing when it came to the coronation and like putting on live broadcast.
Yeah.
And so I think it's possible that maybe when she had all the statesmen come in, they've never been allowed into a coronation before. And so she sees that her pool of people might be broadening a bit more. She has more access to intellectuals in the fields. And so I think, she's feeling a bit more out of sync.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, for someone who was raised and in the firm, essentially, the way that, especially after the abdication, Cookie really had a big part in it, in creating this firm, this never complain, never explain. So for Liz as a kid, and especially now as queen, she's been in this mindset and now she's starting to push on it, which I love. It's her kind of coming into her own as a queen. And I want to say it kind of starts here, I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, for sure. This is kind of the first time that we've already seen her be curious about and a little. We've seen the seeds of resentment start of feeling like she's not ready, she's not prepared, she might not be smart enough or whatever, to be able to kind of keep up with what's going on.
Right.
This is one of the first times she's saying it out loud now.
Yeah, she's questioning someone who essentially has always kind of had her thumb on her. So like Cookie's always worked with Tommy, and it's like they're always kind of coming back to her saying, no, that's not how it's done. And so I really respect that she has been pushing back, and this is her really verbalizing it to her mother's face. Hell yeah. Give Cookie her comeuppance.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Maybe not so mean, but I'm like, girl, Cookie, you suck. And so she's like, she spends so much time, she says, with politicians and statesmen, and she ends up feeling dread of being around them because she feels like she can't talk to them about anything. She doesn't know what to say. She wants to hold her own.
Cookie's dismissive, just saying, oh, well, your dad was the same way.
Yeah. Oh, your dad had it. It's fine. He did fine. You'll be fine. Don't think about it. Liz is always saying, I don't always want to have to, turn the conversation to dogs and horses every time, it is said she loved horses. And so horse racing and stuff. We see it throughout the whole show. But Tommy does come save the day for Cookie and basically calls Elizabeth away.
And Cookie she gets her one last little bit of sass in saying,
oh, she does.
Well, at least with this one, you're not going to have to open your mouth at all, because she's about to go meet with the blustering old Winston Churchill.
He's so old, you don't have to worry. He can barely talk.
Took him an hour to get through the door.
Oh, yeah.
An hour to get to it and an hour to get through it.
It took him an hour to get down that line of just to get down the wedding line of that first episode.
For real.
Well, now we're talking to Tommy. She's going through the halls as they get to her meeting with Winston, and they're chatting about, Tommy's retirement's coming up. And so he's giving her basically the rundown. Here's how this is going to work. Right now, what you need to do is choose whether to go to choose the next personal secretary. So we have a junior and a senior. And she kind of makes the joke, oh, an heir and a spare, which I was like, queen jokes. You gotta. She kind of wants to tell him she appreciates him before they get into any of the details. She's very grateful to him. And he has for 33 years, they mentioned. You said 4 different monarchs? The one before the abdication dude. Yep. Her father and her.
There are 2 options. We're giving the 2 options of who her next secretary is. We've got the senior one and the junior one, and one of them is going to become basically the new Tommy Lascelles. He's going to be her private secretary at her every beck and call, making sure that all of her appointments and her meetings and her whatevers are taken care of. Queenly duties, whatever the shit.
Queenly duties. He does all the organizing of her choices. So like she makes a choice, he makes it happen.
Right. So she says, well, for the record, I've really liked our time together, but it's good that you're retiring. You are, you've worked really hard. You deserve to go home and put your feet up. And then she makes a nice comment of, well, I think I could do really well with Martin Chartres, which is the junior of these 2 secretaries. And he's the junior, but they have worked together in the past. He was her private secretary when she was princess. And when she was living in Malta, that's where he worked with her down there. So they already have a good history of working together. She knows him. They have that good pattern. And basically she is kind of making her recommendation that that's who she'd like to have. And Tommy Lascelles he's like, wait a minute, what? Like, we have order, ma'am. We have an order of things that we got to do. And you can't just skip steps. This is a step. You can't just skip steps.
Yeah, no, there's a tradition here. And just so you know, you made the wrong choice, essentially.
Right.
Oh, Michael Adine is the senior, just in case the name Michael comes up. And Martin was the one who, if what we saw a few episodes ago, basically scrambling to tell her that she became queen. That was Martin, right?
He's the one that ran full fucking speed, full steam to get to her and make sure that she could.
Fastest man on earth.
But Tommy's basically saying, like, Michael's the rightful heir. That's his turn. He should be doing this. And the conversation basically ends with, like, nope, Martin's my choice. Yep. And he walks away, basically not ready to have that argument for the moment. He's like, we'll do this later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, he's gonna go tell on her to Cookie, and then we're gonna.
Oh God, the devious duo.
Other people are gonna tell her what to do.
Tom and Cookie. I love it.
It's Tommy and the cook.
Tommy and the cook. What are we doing today, Cookie? Whatever I tell you, Tom. Whatever I tell you.
Exactly.
All right. Well, they hurry into the PM meeting, and Winston is actually asleep and snoring on the chair.
Because he's an old, tired man.
He's old. He's done a good job. He's just, he's just old. Oh, the doggies.
It's a cute little intro because she's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting, but at least the dogs found you. You've had good company.
Yeah.
They're so cute. They're so corgis with their fluff butts. I love corgis.
It's well known. Queen Elizabeth II loved her a good gaggle of corgis.
How many did she have there towards the end?
I don't know. In the show, they always showed at least 6 or more, sometimes at a time.
Damn.
There's an episode.
There's 3 right here, but that's so many dogs to just be running around all the time.
I feel like, let me see. I'm gonna do.
I wonder if there's a job, like if there's literally just a dog tender person that's like their whole job is to take care of the pups.
Oh, she had a breeding program out of Windsor Castle, a Pembroke Welsh Corgi breeding program. So I think we see it later when we eventually get to Jackie.
That must be where we're seeing all those puppies.
That must be. She must, and the Honey, Pippin, Sugar, they all sound like they could be female dogs too. So just a little deep dive. I just love the doggies.
They're so cute. Look at their cute little paws. Oh my goodness.
Their eyes.
Obviously, everyone who listens to this show already knows that I am a sucker for a cute dog.
I mean,
or just a dog.
We're dog
dogs
people.
Are good dogs. All dogs are good dogs.
Dogs are good doggies. Well, Winston wants to talk about the Soviets' atomic weapons. So that must be the weapons we saw at the beginning was the Russian, and that's why they were speaking in Russian. So the Soviets, I guess, are testing atomic weapons. And I guess they're testing, not atomic, H-bomb.
Yes. It seems like likely the announcement at the beginning of the episode was basically saying something like, we've successfully concluded our testing, or we now have the technology, or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's what Winston is about to kind of give the very brief and not detailed accounting of what is going on to Elizabeth, because she wouldn't know, and he wouldn't bore her with the boring details.
No, he has to pitch it, essentially. So he's doing his pitch. So he says that they have confirmation that they've been testing, and the British, he wants to intervene and secure peace, as he says. He wants to act swiftly. And he wants the British to spearhead the effort. He brings up his credentials. I was always the person they want in the room with the Russians. World War II, I was there. Stalin would only talk to him, which I find interesting. And so without the personal relationship, I guess, he had with Stalin, because Stalin is dead, he now thinks that Eisenhower is going to take it upon himself, as he says, to run the show.
Yeah. In an organization, in a global kind of economy of power, there are 3 big players at this point in the Cold War, and that is the British, the Russians, and the US. And Eisenhower is in the, at the same time that this is happening, Eisenhower is over in the US, and I don't think he's president at this point. What year are we in? 1950, whatever.
Let me see. It's in the 1950s, the nuclear arms race.
And this is Eisenhower was president from 1953 to 1961.
Let's see. On October 4th, 1957, the Soviet Union successfully oh, that's Sputnik. Never mind. This is before Sputnik. I'm going to guess we're in the 1954 to 1955 area, but I'm sure we could probably figure this out. But regardless, we're right in the early to mid 50s.
Oh, hold on. I can figure this out.
Okay, Lauren's got it. She is a historian.
Okay, all right. So it's got to be after 53 because Stalin died in 1953.
Okay, maybe this is soon after.
Now Stalin's gone, so let's because the H-bomb was developed like from 49 to 52. So
it's got to be 53. Is there.
Eisenhower is president and Stalin's dead. It's got to be at least 1953.
No, it's got to be because
we've got this.
We can do this. Because the last episode was 1952, Act of God, the fog.
Right. Okay. So this is 1953. All right.
I think you're right. And if it's so soon after Stalin died, I mean, that would be the power vacuum that Winston's talking about.
Yeah. And we also see like these episodes kind of tend to follow like a year in history of something specific that happened.
Yeah. I don't. Why did I not put that together yet? But yes,
I mean, it doesn't closely follow that. We're just seeing these years because they're choosing these points in time that also happen to be big things events. Big events. Yeah. All right, keep going.
I thank you for deep diving. By the way, since we're Americans, let's test our history real quick. What do we know Eisenhower? What do we know about him? All I know is military man.
Military man. I want to say CIA. And like he
started it maybe?
Can I cheat?
I think that's all we as Americans know about Eisenhower. We're doing great over here.
Oh, yes. The CIA was created in 1947, and Eisenhower believed it was an effective instrument to counter communist expansion and to assist friendly governments.
Okay. That's excellent background because we are dealing with the Soviets here. So we kind of have an idea that Eisenhower has his eye on the Russians. So he gave Winston
presidential approval for Operation Ajax, which was the very first CIA coup. And if you want to find out more about Operation Ajax, which is a fucking incredible story, go to the Dollop. I want to know. Okay. They have a 2-part episode on Operation Ajax.
I am definitely listening to that later today. I'm writing that down. Yeah,
cannot recommend it highly
enough. I have not heard their take on it yet. Perfect.
They have had a lot of really good like deep dives on both like big projects or what
10-cent beer night.
Yeah, that one's a fucking hilarious one. And then they've got like their 2-part Donald Trump series. Or was it 3? One of them's 3 parts.
I didn't know they did a Trump series, guys. You can tell we love the Dollop. We will always recommend.
Up. It's so good. And I hope they do a part 3 the moment he croaks.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait. Not for him to croak, even though, yes, I'm not a big fan of his.
Everyone needs for him to
deep
croak.
Dives that he can't, interfere with. That's what I'm waiting for.
Baby.
I know. But we'll get back to another little baby, which is Winston. He's being a little baby about it.
Wrong old white man to be angry about right now.
A different one. So Winston obviously is telling Lizzie that he's worried Eisenhower is going to take command, just run the whole thing. And he thinks of it essentially as a competition. And Lizzie says verbatim, and that would be bad. And he goes, oh, yes, for all the obvious reasons. And she goes, okay, can you remind me of the obvious reasons? And so here are Winston's reasons. He says, Russia is a great old empire and deserves respect. And he accurately says that Americans like to wave the big stick and speak with the loud voice, which is like, yes, true, drag us, king, and drag us. And he thinks that we, the Americans, we're not ready for world governance. And he says that this situation needs an experienced and elder power, of course, being the British. School them, he says, to school them. And she's giggling because she's been thinking about going to school.
So Winston is talking to her basically saying, because all of this stuff is happening, because of all these tensions and this potential danger, we want to go to Washington and talk to Eisenhower and figure out if we can maybe tag team on this and work together to, get the best potential outcome. And she wants to take the foreign secretary as well, Antony.
Yes, Antony, yes.
And Yeah. Is it the foreign secretary that he wants? That's his title, I think.
It is correct. I have it written. I can confirm.
So they wanted to take the foreign secretary, Antony, and Churchill, both old white men. They want them to go all the way to Washington, basically, to talk out this H-bomb nonsense. And Lizzie kind of calls him on it. She's like, do you really think he's up to it? Like, he's having some health issues. And Winston goes, he's fine. You know? Yeah, he's fine. And then she goes, well, it's not like a good look for Britain for all of our leaders to look like they might be old and frail and in ill health. Like, we need them to kind of show that they're healthy and alive and still kicking. And he's like, yeah, they're fine. We're both fine.
Everything's totally fine.
Winston's a fucking liar. Winston is a fucking liar.
Yeah, it is so interesting to me that they, even now, we're having the palace hide things, or even upper government, about health. And it's even funnier because Americans can kind of understand a little bit of this, because we also only have old men in power.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody's wondering about Biden's memory, and Trump's probably going to have a heart attack. And like, we wanted Bernie, and he's older than both of them.
But his brain is intact. That's the thing. And this isn't, we're going to get into another little side tangent about our own government, but that is a big issue right now, is with competency of older representatives. Like, the older you get, it doesn't necessarily mean that your brain is not going to work right anymore, but there is an absolute increased risk that something is going to happen, whether it be your brain is getting scrambled because you're old, or you have heart issues, or your organs are failing, or whatever. Like, people get old, they break down, they get sick, they can't take care of themselves, and they can't take care of their jobs the way that they used to. And we're seeing that play out over and over again here in American politics, where people are way older than they should be, and maybe their brain works right, but the rest of their body doesn't, or maybe their body works right, but their brain is completely mush.
Or even somewhere in the between. Maybe it's just even the stubbornness to resist change.
That is another big issue, is that it's a familiar spot for them. They are in what they know, and changing things is just not an option, because it would take too much effort. It'd be too hard.
Yeah. What I do find so interesting, though, is that in this equation, we have a young woman who has power. So it's fun. It's very interesting to see
But does she?
Well, good question.
Look,
that is a good question.
We have seen so often in every episode so far, even after she's come to power, we have seen her try to exert her power in very minimal ways. Very little things that wouldn't take a lot of effort to just say, yeah, sure, we can do that. It's not a big deal. And instead, it is a big deal. It is, and they batter down it every time, every little move. Yep. They didn't get to live at Clarence House. They didn't get to have the Mountbatten last name. They frickin' Martin Chartres. We're a little spoiler. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but she doesn't get Martin Chartres. Nope. The way that she wanted to deal with the fog, nobody wanted to do that.
True.
The pilot thing, just all of it is literally all of these old white men over and over telling her that she can't do any of the things that she should be allowed to do because she's the fucking queen.
Yeah.
So is she in charge, or is she just in charge?
And that's the thing, though. Did the kings have this issue? Maybe it's because old white men, or just old men in general in the system.
I really don't think they did.
Yeah. No, they are cornering her. They're limiting.
It's because she's a woman, and she hasn't. Yeah. They haven't had a woman in charge in a long time. They had
a long time.
In a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a queen before? Like, was King George's mother the queen, or was it his father that was king? I'm looking at the predecessors. I guess that's what I'm trying to guess. So George V is the king. So before Elizabeth, we got King George, we got King Edward, we got another King George V, we got another King Edward VII.
That's right.
And it's not until and that
Victoria.
literally and then it's Queen Victoria. So they haven't had a queen in charge in 50 years until they got Elizabeth.
What is so fascinating, and it could just be that there were so many fewer queens in history that like reigned in their own right over the kings, but it's the queens we remember because they had such a huge impact and long reigns.
Yeah.
Elizabeth
historically, women who don't have husbands live longer.
I'm doing great. I could live to 100.
Queens that don't have kings, or like queens, have more peaceful reigns in general. So I think there's something to be said. But these men have all had men in charge, and the men in front of them were all military men. So all of them were trained and thought the same exact way. So they could respect the opinion of King George or King Edward or King George before him or King Edward before him, because they were all military men. They were all trained to do certain things. Yeah.
And follow orders and rules.
Exactly.
And oh my God.
And so if you're looking at your advisors and that kind of thing, they know that they're advising the king, but they also know that he has a lot of knowledge in his own right to make those decisions. So they're going to be okay if he's like, no, we're doing it my way. But she's young, she's innocent, she hasn't had that much reign, she hasn't had that long to rule, and she still needs a lot of guidance. Yeah. And she hasn't been in the military, except that she was a
mechanic. In a woman's capacity.
But only in a woman's capacity, but because she was only allowed to be a mechanic.
Exactly. But honestly, still pretty badass that she was a mechanic.
It is really cool. Yes.
Super badass.
This is another thing. I don't know like how often this happened for you as a kid, but since I had siblings, we often played pretend. Just we would do stupid games, right? And we'd run around and we'd always make up stories for ourselves or like little backgrounds or whatever. And as a kid, I was always like the mechanic or the pilot or like whatever, like the greasy like gearhead whatever person. Like I wanted to be the tomboy and like the one that can fix everything. So I always thought it was really cool that Queen Elizabeth had been a mechanic in her military before I found out that it was basically because they wouldn't let her be anything else.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I always just pretended to be an older sister because I just didn't have any siblings.
And I was lonely. Oh my God, it's so sad. Oh.
I'm sorry, but yeah, that's it.
Oh my God.
I just was like, I tell my friends, I would tell them I'm 19, even though I was like 12, and I'm your older sister. And our parents always died in a plane crash. It was pretty dramatic storytelling.
Oh, that's okay. We always had like some apocalypse world ending issue that we had to save everyone from. It was never just like, took a wrong turn coming home and got lost. It was like,
no, we were training
to save millions of lives.
Exactly. Yeah. We had to get ourselves ready. We knew on some level that our parents were fucking it all up. Yeah.
I don't remember why we were talking about that, but
I don't know either. We were
talking about playing pretend mechanics.
We were. And pretending
anyway, they wouldn't let her be a mechanic or they wouldn't let her be anything but a mechanic. But basically we were talking about the fact that like these kings were seen as authority figures because they were men and also they had military experience and also they had all this other background and also.
Yeah.
Basically, so much even though Elizabeth has almost all of this, she's still a woman. She's got a vagina, which means
she's got to be babysat.
She needs help.
Help me! I'm a woman.
I got tits. Oh no!
Oh no! What do I do? So I want to talk a little bit. So Liz has heard that Antony is sick. I'm wondering how, like, what have they told her? Because we get a cut to Anthony pretty soon here. Or Antony.
Servants talk. People talk, people gossip, and there's probably like someone probably saw him shooting his like pain medication or whatever.
It could be,
on a different day, or maybe like his wife talked to some other wife, and a wife, like maybe it just got through.
People talk, people talk. You're right. Well, since we are talking about
Anthony,
how do you think
all of this shit? How do you think all of this shit at the palace right now happened? People talk. And now they're on the plane on their way to DC, and we're seeing the physical evidence that Winston is a liar and Anthony is indeed sick because he's sweating. He's
getting sick. He's sitting down. Everybody's kind of starting to notice. And he's in pain. He's writhing in his chair. He looks like he's going to pass out or vomit or both. So he's asking for a bag. And so the attendant not attendant, but one of the men next to him brings him his bag, and he pulls out his injection medication. I'm wondering if do you think it's insulin or morphine?
I don't think it's insulin, but it's probably morphine or something. Okay.
That was my second guess, because his reaction is that immediate relief you get with morphine. Yeah. But so this must be some serious pain.
I don't want to speculate. I don't want to speculate too much on it, but basically there's a medication. We are not professionals. And he has one of his coworkers have to shoot him up on the plane
in front of everyone.
I don't do well with needles on screen. Yeah.
Oh, and I'm one of those people who has to watch a needle if they're pulling blood or something. I have to watch it go in.
I can watch the whole preparation. I can watch once it's in and the blood come out and all of that, but the actual pricking. Now, so we talked about Anthony and his medication, the fact that he was breaking down. That was obviously the main focus of the episode or of that scene, but you're also hearing in the undertones, they're doing a briefing of this H-bomb and all of the Soviet planning of what they're like, of all the testing and shit. And they're basically saying that they're kind of ramping up production. Like they're getting ready to go do something. So we're kind of hearing a little bit of this, like, okay, we're seeing some increased concern because they might actually have something that could destroy even more lives than the atomic bomb that that the Americans dropped.
Right. So it's like you're hearing how important this briefing is, how top level important. And this man who's crucial to this trip is like almost passing out or dying on a plane. Yeah. Yeah. And I never picked up on, I was always so focused on Anthony's reaction to his body kind of, I guess, I don't know what his condition is.
It's a very subtle, like, it's a very subtle thing, but that's one thing this show does. Like, there's a reason it won so fucking many awards, and it's because its attention to detail is just incredible. Every second that this show is about is either making a point or explaining something or tying or things
highlighting
together.
The humanness.
Yes, it's very good.
Very. So we cut to the briefing of the bomb in the meeting that they're all going to. So they're going over pictures of the bomb testing and things like that. And while they're having this meeting, someone comes in to tell them that Anthony and his department arrived. This is in DC. And they're going over the blast radius. The British Foreign Secretary has arrived. So they go out into the hallway to greet him and to invite him in. This is a really well done set. It's very well shot. You have all these important gray suit men coming out into a very like neutral toned.
It looks like a government building. It really looks.
Yeah, it really does.
It looks like Washington for sure.
Yeah. And in the middle of this government building is just Anthony asleep on the couch. And these are American. Is this Eisenhower actually?
Yep.
That is Eisenhower. And he's reading Anthony.
That gentleman is not just a sleeping man. It is a sad metaphor in what was once the most powerful country on earth.
Brutal. Just brutal.
Yeah.
And somebody goes, "What's that on his arm?" And it goes to a blood spot of the site of injection. And so now everybody knows something's going on with Anthony. So they just go, "Oh, good God." I wonder if they think it's drugs or if it's his health.
It almost looks like, I mean, to me, if he were completely passed out on a couch and had a very fresh track mark on his arm with blood, I would assume morphine, unless there were people around me, or like morphine or heroin or some shit, unless there were people around me to say like, no, he is, something else is going on. Yeah.
Yeah. We're at Buckingham and Martin Charteris has now arrived to go see Lizzie. And so Lizzie is bringing him in to let him know that obviously the private secretary, Tommy, is going to be retiring. So she's kind of floating him a job offer. I like her little smile right before she offers him as she offers him the job. Mm-hmm. And then he seems very confused. I called it awkwardly delighted.
Yep.
Michael's asking about Michael Adine. He calls him the natural successor, as we have heard from Tommy. So it sounds like Martin is also well aware of the protocols here.
Okay, so I looked it up. Anthony Eden's health issues. He had a biliary tract injury during a cholecystectomy, which required 4 subsequent operations. And then he had recurrent fevers, post-operative disability. It says post-operative disability at important times in his career and during international crises, which is exactly what we're seeing right here. Yes. So he wasn't, he's not just a druggie. He's like literally sick. His biliary tract, which is very vital to which is vital to your body's like waste system, was not functioning the right way. So
no wonder he's having fevers. He was probably having like internal infections because of that.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Oh, that poor man.
Maybe it was an antibiotic that he was taking.
Oh, could have been.
Maybe there were antibiotics and morphine or whatever. I don't know.
It was the 50s.
Whatever it was.
I have no idea what the medical like treatments were like back then, but I imagine they were horrific.
But now that we're scooching forward, fuck if this isn't the saddest moment at all.
I know.
To pause on the screenshot that we've got, because Elizabeth literally, the quote is saying, "I was hoping it might be possible for me to make my own decision just once."
I know. She's like, I am literally queen. I am trying to just make a choice. I work better with this one person. I would like to work with this one person. And even that one person is like, but wait, that's not how it's done.
Yeah. Just one time.
Yeah, just this once. And she goes, there's 2 private secretaries, and I just happen to prefer the junior. And so with that, he accepts.
Martin's very flattered. He's very happy about it. Super flattered.
I know. And I like their working relationship. It's nice to see her be comfortable when she works with someone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Her whole demeanor changes. The way she smiles changes. You can tell that she is a lot more physically comfortable with certain people.
Yeah. And so right before Martin leaves, he asks, as any wonderful private secretary would do, and he goes, in the meantime, is there anything I can do for you? And so at first she says no, and he's about to walk out, and then she goes, actually, Martin, a tutor. And I like this next line, and she goes, she preferably wants one that's not too stuffy, has a sense of humor.
And since he knows her, he gets her sense of humor, so he's like, all right, I'm on it.
And see, I just want that for her, All right, so we move to seeing Anthony in the US, I believe, and he's in the hospital, and he's letting Downing Street and Churchill know that he needs corrective surgery, and Winston's on the phone with him. And so he's basically letting Churchill know, I cannot do this. I can't take this trip. I can't do this high-stress job right now. I have to take care of my health. Winston's
gallbladder needs to come out.
Exactly. And Winston is not happy about it, and he stupidly asks, can't you just delay it? No, I can't. I love this. You see how he's, for anybody who is watching, Anthony on the phone right now, he's kind of like running his finger around on the sheets or something. He kind of looks like what I imagine a little like a young girl on the phone with her crush is doing, kind of going, do you like me? Maybe I'm wrong.
The only thing he needs is like twirling the cord between his fingers. Yeah.
He might as well. He's like, you've been able to do it without me for some time. And Winston's like, in jest, my dear boy, when you become mutinous and presumptuous, like basically going, you told me you don't need me. I'm fucking with you.
I obviously I couldn't actually do this without you. Duh.
I know. It's that relationship.
Obviously, I rely on you.
Yes. And he really wants to make Winston say it. He goes, but I'd still like to hear you say it again.
Say it, bitch.
Tell me you need me.
Tell me you need me. To all the people listening in, so they can hear. Because there's a million operators between Washington and London.
And they're all listening. You see it in the show,
he needs them to say. He needs them to hear him say that he needs him.
Yeah.
Again, also very high school. Like,
oh, so
tell me you like me again. Tell me how cute I am.
I want to hear you say it.
Let me hear you say it.
So Winston buckles down and says it. He goes, I depend on you, Anthony. What for? Your judgment.
It's
your integrity.
What else?
Your loyalty.
Tell me more. Tell
Louder,
me more.
Please. I need you. All right. So that's Winston pours it all out, saying, yes, Anthony, I need you. And right after he does all of that, gives Anthony what he wants. And then Anthony goes, and I need the surgery, Winston. It's my life at stake now. Goodbye. He like hangs up and goes, I'm sorry, hangs up.
Then he hangs up.
Dial tone.
And this is when Winston has something of his own medical crisis.
He does.
He has a stroke.
He is
a major
he's
stroke.
Shaking. His eyes are kind of going all over. You can tell like the stress must have brought something on. And we're seeing
you can see that something's going on.
Yeah, and Anthony is meanwhile being rolled into surgery. So we're seeing both culminations of their medical crises at one of their most important political career moments.
So to take it back to the very beginning of the episode, we're seeing the efficient. We're seeing the two should be the most efficient figures in the British government, and both of them are in medical crisis at the same moment.
Yeah.
And neither of them have told the Queen or anyone else. Basically, Anthony has only told the Prime Minister, and now Prime Minister's having a stroke himself.
Yeah, and so now we're seeing a couple people checking in on him going, Prime Minister, and he's just not responding. And that's the end of that scene. So we as the viewer can tell he's having a stroke, something's going on, but that's it. That's contained to that room. No one in England and the UK knows about Anthony or Churchill's crises, but in that room.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're back at Buckingham. Lizzie is, waiting for the two to arrive. I believe he is in this car. We're seeing a car. Yep, there he is. He's driving up to Buckingham. He's taking a swig from his flask. He's nervous. I would be. You're going to teach the Queen.
You can tell he's like an old, grizzled, like has had a hard life before he gets in, before he says a fucking word. We just, in that one little shot of how he's dressed, how he's looking, the shot that he takes right before he comes in the gates.
He's not the most, what's the word? Conventional tutor, you can tell.
He would be the professor in college that I would absolutely adore.
The person that you'd be like, hey, I brought you cookies for for office hours.
You'd be like, fuck you, but then he'd eat them.
He'd them. He'd have them. He'd be like, I don't need these. And just go for it.
Crunch. Yeah.
Crunch, munch. But we are now catching up with Lizzie. She's reading the newspaper. Charles and Anne are being
secret notes.
Yeah. Oh, is she taking secret notes?
She has a little notebook. She reads the newspaper and she has this little notebook and a pencil. And as she reads, she's been taking little notes on like certain things that are happening in the news.
I just thought she was just reading for the newspaper. No, you're right. There's the notebook. Oh, eagle eyes, Miss Lauren. I love it. So she's waiting for the tutor to show up, and it looks like,
again, it's all about those details.
It is. And we learned the professor's name. He's being introduced. Lizzie's doing her thing.
Hogg.
His name is Professor Hogg with 2 G's. And so they're going to get ready to meet. So she's getting prepped. He walks in.
I love this because Martin chooses a tutor for her, and instead of like coming himself to introduce or set up the meeting or even telling her what the guy's name is, he just sends him. And Elizabeth is like, who am I meeting with? And it's someone else saying, Colonel Chartres said that you'd be expecting him. Yeah. And she just kind of rolls with it. She's like, all righty then. Okay, let's go.
Well, that's the trust. That's the trust right
exactly.
there.
That's why she wanted him as her private secretary.
Exactly.
Because as we learn, he fucking nails it with this professor.
He really does. So she's kind of explaining to Professor Hogg, what the goal of this is. She says, I end up meeting all these exceptional intellectual men in my job, but I feel that I'm, as she calls it, on the back foot, which I thought was a really great way of saying it.
Oh, for sure.
And you see she's nervous. She is grasping at her pearls, which I do with my necklaces sometimes.
This is a beautiful moment. She is expressing vulnerability to a complete stranger and saying, I find myself feeling at a disadvantage. I don't feel smart, and I have, like, this is part of my everyday life. And this is a frequent thing where I can't keep up with these statesmen and these politicians and scientists and very important people that do know the major things of the world. And I got nothing. And the professor, without missing a beat, just says, that's no way to live.
Which is not a response that she's gotten from anybody in her firm circle. Cookie just waves it off.
He is immediately respectful of her desire to learn. It never dismisses her as like,
no,
well, you're the queen, you don't need to know these things. He basically just says, yeah, ignorance sucks.
Yeah. And he recognizes almost like exactly the feeling that she's saying, that this has been an everyday, not disappointment, but just frustration that she has.
Yeah. And she's been forced to be ignorant.
Yeah. And he cares about her feelings on the matter. That's fantastic. I agree. And this is where I just immediately fell in love with the professor. It took me no time at all to love this man.
He's very respectful to her, like, as a woman as well, because, I mean, we don't even need to talk about that, but...
No, we just snaps for Professor Hogg.
It's just a tiny difference between, like, the way other members of the cabinet or, the government or whatever have treated her to this immediate of, like, yeah, you should definitely learn.
Yeah, she wants to hold her own.
She just wants to fill some of the gaps in her basic knowledge. And he's like, well,
how far did you get?
Let's start with, how far did you get in your education? What degrees did you get? Which exams did you pass? What levels are you at? And she just looks at him with like a deer in the headlight kind of look.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's just like, he wants to know kind of, it almost goes from like, well, how far did you get in school? To, okay, well, what exams did you take? To, okay,
what do you know?
Yeah, it's almost like, well, it might be easier to just say, what do you know?
Yeah, like, what are the things that you learned?
Yeah, and it's almost disheartening because now she's finding out how far behind she is.
She does the thing with her fingers again. You can tell when she gets nervous. Yeah. There's no certificates. There's no exams. No. There's no school certificate.
And she's in a league of her own.
She's realizing as he's asking each of these questions that she is way, way farther behind than she ever could imagine she would have been.
Yeah.
Because she didn't even know these things existed. What are school exams? What are certifications?
Yeah, like, what's a crown?
What is this?
And how daunting that must be to find out.
She's finally learning how much she doesn't know.
And how separated she is from everyone else.
Yeah.
Much like when she was at Eton and there were all these young boys in top hats and she's the only girl.
And you really can't know. I fucking hate to paraphrase one of the 2016 presidential candidates, but you really can't know what you don't know until someone's telling you that you don't know it. I mean, ignorance is bliss until someone can tell you of its existence and then not give you that knowledge to fill in that gap. So to not only have that be like, well, okay, maybe I'm just missing a couple things here and there. I can get this side tutoring and I'll catch up in just a couple months. And she's realizing instead of that, she's got to go all the way back to the beginning because she really doesn't know anything. And it's got to be a very daunting feeling for her.
Oh, absolutely. And so we unfortunately end that scene on that heartbreaking look at Liz where she's...
And then we go to the brainless watching of a TV.
Oh my God.
With Cookie.
The stupidest black and white circus show.
Alright, guys, so for part 1, we're going to just stop here. It turned into a really long episode, so we are going to kind of cut it at the halfway point, and we will see you next time on the Crownening, and we're going to be covering the second half of Season 1, Episode 7, Scientia, Potentia est. Thanks. Bye.